17 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few pitches I would drop this week. The first guy is Domingo Germán of the New York Yankees. So Germán, he landed on the injured list with shoulder inflammation, and anytime there's a shoulder, elbow, or arm injury in your pitching arm, you're gonna be expected to miss an extended period of time. And that's been the deal here with Germán now on the season. It wasn't that great of a year anyway, a mediocre season to poor at best. 97 innings, 4-5 record, 88 hits, 48 earned runs, 17 homers, 25 walks, 95 strikeouts, 4.45 ERA, and a 1.16 whip with 6 quality starts on the season. And the last couple weeks before he went down, 15 innings, no record, 6 hits, 5 runs, a homer, 6 walks, 20 Ks, 3 ERA, 0.80 whip, and a quality start for Germán. So Germán here, he left July 31st game with the injury at the Miami Marlins. And it was good for the Yankees that they went out there and got Andrew Heaney as depth for that rotation. And now I'm expecting Heaney to step right in and get a rotation spot here for the Yankees. So the last 3 outings for Germán before he went down: July 20th versus Philly, 4 innings, no decision, 3 hits, 2 runs, a homer, 3 walks, 5 Ks, a 4.50 ERA, and a 1.50 whip. Then July 25th at Boston, 7 innings, no decision, 1 hit, 1 run, a walk, 10 Ks, a 1.29 ERA, and an 0.29 whip with the quality start. And then July 31st, where he got hurt, 4 innings, no decision, 2 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 5 Ks, a 4.5 ERA, and a 1 whip. So right here, he's in a tough division, no doubt about it. And with this injury, after mediocre numbers on the season, I think, in my opinion, he's not worth an injured list stash in fantasy leagues, and he's a drop. And so far, he's been dropped in 12% of fantasy leagues, because he could be out for the most of the rest of the regular season here with that injury, and there's no need to hold on to him, in my opinion. The next pitcher is Tony Gonsolin of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So another pitcher who's banged up and went on the injured list, just like Germán with a shoulder injury, same type of injury, inflammation. And like I said, anytime you hear that, it's not good news, especially this later in the season for fantasy owners. And obviously, for the pitchers themselves on the season, Gosolin's been hurt most of the year anyway, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's going to be out for the regular season. 35 2/3, 2-1 record on the year, 26 hits, 11 runs, 4 homers, 26 walks, 42 strikeouts, a 2.78 ERA, a 1.46 whip. So right here, pretty good numbers, even though it's a small sample size in the 35 2/3. In the last couple weeks before he went down, 10 1/3, 1-1 record, 8 hits, 5 earned runs, 2 homers, 11 walks, 11 Ks, a 4.35 ERA, and a 1.84 whip. So he's been struggling the last few outings before he went out with the injury here, is Gonsolin. And like I said, with his injury problems over the last year and a half here, he's a player you can't trust. And he's an easy drop this week. So the last couple outings before he went down, July 24th versus the Rockies, 5 1/3, got the win, 2 hits, no runs, 2 walks, 7 Ks, 0.75 whip. July 30th at Arizona, he only lasted 1 2/3 before he got hurt. 1 hit, 2 runs, 5 walks, a K, a 10.80 ERA, and a 3.60 whip. So his control this season wasn't great. The ERA was pretty good, but right now, there's not much of a sample size, and he's injury prone, and he's been dropped so far in 10% of fantasy leagues, and that number should continue to go up as the week goes on. The next pitcher is Chris Paddock of the San Diego Padres, so another guy hurt here. And hey, this is what you got to do if pitchers are hurt this late in the season and you don't have those injured list spots left on your team, because you're stashing other guys where you're waiting for comeback to injury. These are the guys that got to go and got to get dropped first. And Paddock on the season, Jekyll and Hyde for him. 1 good outing, 1 bad outing. And right now, this gives owners excuses to drop him in their fantasy leagues. And that's what exactly I did with Paddock in a few leagues I had him. And plus, his injury is pretty severe with the strained oblique. And we know these oblique injuries cost some players 2 to 3 months easily sometimes. So on the season for Paddock, 93 innings, 7-6 record, 103 hits, 53 runs, 13 homers, 20 walks, 90 Ks, 5.13 ERA, and a 1.32 whip with 6 quality starts. So right there, those numbers, they're nothing at all in my opinion, especially that high ERA for Paddock. In the last couple weeks, he was looking to turn things around. 11 innings, 2-0 record, 12 hits, 3 runs, a walk, 7 Ks, a 2.45 ERA, and a 1.18 whip with a quality start. But now with the injury here, it's an easy drop in my opinion, even though the last couple outings he's trying to turn things around here is Paddock. But he's a guy you really couldn't trust most of the season, and now he should be dropped, and he's been dropped in 4% of fantasy leagues so far. So last couple outings before he went down, July 16th at Washington, 5 innings, got the win, 5 hits, 4 runs, a homer, a walk, 2 Ks, a 7.20 ERA, and a 1.20 whip. July 21st at Atlanta, 5 innings, got the win, 3 hits, no runs, a strikeout, 0.60 whip. And July 27th versus the Athletics, 6 innings, got the win, 9 hits, 3 runs, a walk, 6 Ks, a 4.5 ERA, and a 1.67 whip with a quality start. So right here, that was his first quality start, that 27th game since July 2nd. So right now, you weren't getting much from him, and somehow he's still owned in 67% of fantasy leagues. But right now, in my opinion, with the injury and the poor numbers, he's an easy drop this week. The next pitch is Brad Hand of the Toronto Blue Jays. So Brad Hand here, it looks like he's not going to be the closer for his new team. He was part of that Washington National fire sale where they pretty much traded anybody and everybody besides Juan Soto. So on the season for Hand, 43 2/3, 5-5 record, 21 saves, which was amongst the league leaders in fantasy and baseball this season. 33 hits, 17 earned runs, 5 homers, 18 walks, 42 strikeouts, a 3.50 ERA, and a 1.17 whip on the season. So we've seen Hand here in his one outing so far with Toronto, and he came in the 8th inning of that game. Right now, could be a little bit too early to jump the gun and drop him in your fantasy leagues, but right now I think Toronto, they like the way things are going here, and they're just going to stick what they got. They also traded for Joakim Zoria as well, so if you didn't know, hear my take on the Joakim Zoria trade. But Brad Hand here looks like he's not going to be the closer, but he's still owned in 88% of fantasy leagues. But right now, with other closers available on the waiver wire, I think it's an easy drop for him, because it could even be a split situation between saves with Romano and Brad Hand, and that's something you don't really want to mess with when you could just get someone on the waiver wire who's the clear-cut closer for their team. So I think this week Hand is a drop, and the 5th and final pitcher I look to drop this week is Ranger Suarez of the Philadelphia Phillies. So Ranger Suarez, he was the closer for the Phillies after they went through many options this season. Archie Bradley, Jose Alvarado, obviously, and Hector Neris. But the Phillies at the trade deadline made a good deal with the Texas Rangers and getting Kyle Gibson and Ian Kennedy. And obviously, Kennedy's going to slide right into the closer role. And now they're making him a starter here as Philly. And Suarez, he's been dropped in 5% of fantasy leagues so far this week. But now Suarez, even as a starter, he's not going to have fantasy value at all. They're going to have to stretch him out. And how deep into games could he really go? Probably the first 2 or 3 outings at least. He's only going to go 3 or 4 innings. And that does nothing for fantasy owners. And the Phillies, they're trying to find lightning in a bottle now, with them only 3.5 games out of their division in the NL East behind the New York Mets. But right now, with them trying to experiment with Suarez now, he's definitely not a fantasy option in my opinion. Maybe in a few weeks when he's stretched out and could go deeper into games, he could be an option. But right now, while he's only going to pitch 3 or 4 innings at most, he's not going to qualify for wins or quality starts. And who knows how deep he really could go. So on the season, 40 1/3, 5-3 record, 4 saves, 21 hits, 5 earned runs, 3 homers, 14 walks, 42 strikeouts, a 1.12 ERA, and an 0.87 whip. So his numbers were outstanding here for Suarez. But the Phillies, they think they can make him a starter now, and we'll see what happens. But in my opinion, he's an easy drop this week, and that's a few pitches I would look to drop here in Week 17 of the fantasy baseball season.